Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
1 second. Okay, welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees for February 12th, 2024. I'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Arlene, can you do roll call, please?
John Alford.
Here.
Francis Bob.
Here.
Cataletta.
Present.
Patrice Golden.
Present.
Ben Gollinger.
Here.
Jim Garneau.
Here.
Jim Grimes. Celia Josephson.
Here.
And William Taylor.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim just pulled in.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start with public comment. Sag Harbor Masters and Trustees for the outer mooring management. Dean Kane, you want to address the board? Or Bob?
We'll do it together.
Bob Forey?
Back into the mic.
Just want to say good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to get to meet you. As I'd mentioned a little bit earlier, I just joined as a trustee this past July. I had worked in the village as a volunteer on the architectural review board and then on the zoning board. So this is a newer role for me. So it's a great opportunity to get to meet you and then an opportunity for us to be sharing best practices and learn with us. So that's what we look forward to. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Bob so that he can give you a little background, given that maybe there are some new trustees, but about the whole outer management area.
Evening, everyone. So just started my 15th harbor master for Sag Harbor. And when I started there, we had an issue with derelict boats on the outside. And it was really, we had issues. Nobody ever knew whose boats they were that broke loose. So I was in contact with Mayor Gilbert at the time. Him along with Fred Thiel were able to get some legislation passed that gave us jurisdiction out to where it currently is now. That being said, there's a mooring field out there. In the last several years, once the village adopted it, we had an application process in place where if you wanted to put a boat out there, you filled out an application showing that it was registered and insured and all the documentation, hey Jim, all the documentation was up to, and then we'd issue a mooring sticker for the mooring ball. Since then, let me just say that last year we had 63 moorings out there. The most boats we had at any given time, I think the number was 47, and that's with boats coming and going. So what we wanted to do is, the reason we came up with this was we wanted to get all the mooring balls with a GPS coordinate so it sets up a similar grid as we have on the inside mooring field. And that's pretty much basically all we're doing.
Questions?
And so I think we shared the first draft of what the outer management would look like. And in just plotting that to give us a sense of what a total number could be. And that number was 113. And given how Bob said it was a little over 60 was the number of moorings that had been basically paid for and set up, we also have anchoring going on. And so there are about 5 seasonal anchors, but then we have people who come in for a weekend or a week at a time. So we want to have space allotted to be able to direct those boats of where they would anchor as well. So instead of having the full 113, we wanted to have a smaller number, taking into consideration the low 60-ish moorings to date, plus the seasonal anchoring, as well as people coming in and out, and also allowing some room for some small growth, whether it's residents coming in, could be East Hampton residents, could be Sag Harbor residents. And so we're going to go with a number of 85. And so when the new drawing comes, as soon as we have it, hopefully tomorrow, Nelson Pope and Voorhees is finalizing that document. And, the things that we're taking into consideration are, making sure boats aren't going to be near any hazardous rocks, taking into consideration where the eelgrass is, also taking into consideration wanting the smaller boats to be positioned where they're going to have protection and safety for them as well, because it can get a little rough out there. And that's part of the reason why we think to date, when there are residents and some non-residents who are on the waiting list, when the harbor masters offer them a position in the outer management area, they say, I think I'll wait till I get something inside, depending on their boat. And quite honestly, we really don't want them to put out a boat out there that's not going to be strong enough to handle the conditions. So these are all the things that we've taken into consideration and wanted to share that with you. And then we did add in, so there will be a resolution. That's the way this would be passed. I think we shared that with you. So it's not dated yet because we are waiting for the final of the chart. And then we actually are going to add to it, a policies and procedure was basically taking things off the berthing agreement that we have and some of the practices that we do, and we shared that with you as well. So any questions right now?
One of the trustees' interests when this management area was first adopted was making sure there was enough availability for residents moorings. How you address that in this?
So as it stands now, we've got 85 locations. I don't think we're going to come anywhere close to that, So I think as of now, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
What was the percentage of residents that had the moorings last year when there was 60?
Truth be told, there's not really many residents, whether it be Sag Harbor Village, East Hampton, very few, mostly out of towners.
Is that a case, Bob, with where the interior moorings are more occupied by residents of Sag Harbor?
Yeah, residents, and it's a mix, residents and non-residents, but I would say on the outside, very, very few.
And I may have missed this. I don't want to make this redundant, but you're not charging for these moorings this year, correct?
This year, we're charging $350 per mooring, and it's more of an administrative fee. We spend, myself and I've got 2 assistant harbor masters are out every day on a boat, weather permitting, and we do a mooring check and, everything that goes along with it. So,
As you're saying,
and that's for everybody. That's to say, if it's a Sag Harbor Village resident, somebody from out of town, East Hampton, everybody, because it takes us the same amount of time.
Do you have any standards for the moorings?
Yeah, there's standards in place.
How many moorings are for transient boaters?
Out on the outside?
Yeah.
That's going to be, once we get this grid completed with the 85, I think, what was the number? It all depends because we haven't since we haven't gotten the mooring grid completed, we haven't met with all the mooring contractors. Once we hear from them, they will know.
Do you have to charge per night for transient?
No, we're not going to get involved. The village's end is, you want a mooring, you pay the village $350, and then, as long as it's got the proper insurance and everything.
And the $350 goes to the application process, garbage, pump out, and the daily monitoring by the harbor masters. So that's, it's not a large fee. We just, we're just trying to introduce something so that people will understand there are costs associated.
Yeah, you guys know what getting rid of garbage now and pump out. So, in the last 95 years.
So we were just discussing before this meeting, actually something to consider for our own moorings. They're called eco moorings. So traditional moorings have the chain that drags around it and basically kills all the seabed and the seagrass. So this tackle actually floats. So it was something we were thinking about, maybe we could try and cycle in the next few years to, try and protect our eelgrass.
And so,
But hang on, but David, your mooring field, there is no eelgrass.
There's two beds, and they've been documented, and so that's what part of the holdup was getting this mooring grid put together was, we just got the information last week on where these beds are. There's one like off to the northeast and one on the west. So what the Nelson Fulton Board is there, consolidating that field so it doesn't go anywhere near these fieldgrass beds.
But I'm saying this would prevent, this would protect the eelgrass in the future, I know there's none there now, but we want there to be in the future, and Robert's here to talk about restoration, so it would help.
great, if we can learn a new
Yeah, just
thing,
something to think about.
Maybe this is something we could work on together. I mean,
Sure.
we could maybe buy a couple of moorings at some point as a sort of tests,
And you've got the chart in front of you now. On the inside, our inside mooring field's got 99 moorings. And the outer mooring field is probably 3 times the size of the inner. And we're only going with 85, so.
this map we have in our folders, represents 103, is it? 130?
13.
Yes, well, that one does, but the new one, when you get the new one back, it's gonna be
I saw it
85.
online.
I see it. I'm just peeking over.
I mean,
John, do you know this?
I know we had spoken when we met last week, we had spoke about getting basically the draft language of
For the resolution?
the resolution. Did we get it?
Yep, we have that as well. So there's the initially proposed mooring field with all 113. So the changes will be taking out the larger green circles on the lower right-hand side, which would be
On the east,
the
the south, and the east.
southeast. All those would be taken out, and then the top strip, which would be the north going from west to east. So that's how we're reducing the ones, keeping the same number of small ones for, smaller boats, and then keeping the same mid-sized boats. It's just kind of changing how the location is, but those are the changes that we are working on. Hopefully, Jim, to have the final tomorrow, that we can share that with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I was really hoping that you'd have something that wasn't, like all cut and paste.
Right.
Reading this going, how much of this stuff is really taken out? How much of this stuff just has a line through it? But in concept, I don't know about John, I'm in agreement with what you guys are trying to do there. It does align with the agreement that we made several years back. When, a year from now, when there is a disparity between the fee schedule. Oh, okay, because the one I've got is all like highlighted and, looks like something I would send you.
No, you're letting you know how much we were editing. We were doing a lot.
Okay. Well, listen, I didn't need to see all the backroom things that went on. I don't have a problem with this. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. You have a meeting tomorrow, correct, with your village? I think their presence here tonight was in hopes that we would support this change in,
John, did you want to add anything?
I have a couple comments, yes.
We should hear John's comments.
okay. I thought you guys were all on the same page.
Well, we are, but there's some differences of opinion, and I think it's
Okay.
reasonable to have some difference.
It's nice if you guys could air your dirty laundry before you come in here, so we don't have to endure this stuff.
No, I don't think it's dirty laundry. I think it's trying to get things right. When we were at the meeting on, last Monday, there was some questions raised about the chart, and that chart you have, really, you can't fit that many moorings in that location and not be in the eelgrass, and not be in an area that's been designated as no moorings, and not be in the area that's been designated as a recreational area. So that being pointed out, we had to make some changes, and they just haven't been able to, to finish them yet. But I think there's some policy considerations here, and I'll just, throw them out. And one is that, should there be a preference given to residents? There's some language in the statute that gave us the additional jurisdiction that says that residents of Sag Harbor and East Hampton Town should be treated the same. But I think it was intended that residents would get a preference over non-residents, and I think that still should be the case. One of the concerns here is that they've talked about moorings, but I don't think a word was said about anchoring. And the large yachts all anchor. And anchoring is not as environmentally friendly as moorings, as you know. And they, talked about a fee for moorings, but not for the boats that are anchoring the large yachts. And personally, and many of the people.
John, excuse you. So there is a fee is going to be for anchoring and for mooring.
Well, it's not the same. Unless you've changed something since the last time I saw it, it's not the same. As of a week ago, there was going to be no fee for anchoring. Sure. As of the last I saw from the resolution, proposed resolution, it would only be for boats that were there for more than 30 days. And again, I think that's unfair to residents. Normally put their boats on moorings. It's the safer way to do it. Environmentally, it's safer for their boat. And I think that if the residents are going to pay $350, that large yachts, 100-foot yachts, should at least, who are going to be there for a month or a week or whatever it is, should at least pay the same amount. And I think that's the only fair way to do it. I mean, I think the larger yachts should pay a lot more than that. Because their effect on the environment is a whole lot larger. I mean, if you talk about a 25-foot boat and compare it to a 150-foot boat, with a liveaboard crew of 15, et cetera, there's a tremendous difference. So I think those are some of the considerations that we're still discussing, and should be discussed. I'm all for protecting the environment, and I think that sometimes commercial interests, get in the way of that, and they're opposing interests. So I'm speaking more for the environment and for limiting, the amount of use and limiting the number of boats. I'd like to see a smaller limit on the number of boats. In other words, if there've been 45 or 50, there in the past, that we, should limit it to that amount until there's really a demand for more, and then we can consider that.
Bob, is the anchor field within the footprint of the mooring field?
It is, and that's why some of the bigger mooring locations are really, we're going to assign the bigger boats out there to anchor up out there, like offshore. So it's all.
What's the biggest size boat a mooring can handle?
So right now it's like 110. I think we put a limit on it with the new language is 150 or more.
It's all different. Are these all within 1,500 feet of the village?
No, it's offshore of that.
It's all.
So the offshore ones, do you have the legal authority to,
We do.
on the village law, how far out can you go?
This was something that the state had
Oh,
amended.
the state has a,
No.
The state
Bill,
amended it.
This goes back 6 or 8 years.
2016.
The state amended.
Yeah, when I came here 8 years ago, we were proposing to increase the village's jurisdiction out almost to 5,000 feet or almost a mile out. In other words, from 1,500 feet where it had been for about 30 years to almost a mile out to the end of to the south side of the channel, so that it would take jurisdiction over that area because there was no control over that area previously. And you, the trustees, or those of you who are still on from 8 years ago, agreed with that. And we got state legislation to give the village that jurisdiction. So it's under that jurisdiction that we're operating now.
And we did have a conversation with New York State, letting them know we were working on this and we're gonna be charging the $350 fee, and they agreed to that. We will, once we have a final chart, we will be sending that to them as well.
Okay. Like I said earlier, I'm in favor of this thing in concept. Troubling things I've heard tonight, that there is eelgrass proximate to this area, that you now have the locations noted. I'd feel better about this thing if you came in, Bob, showing those areas and showing how this plan's going to be mitigated to accommodate and protect the eelgrass.
Hopefully, we're gonna have it tomorrow morning for you.
What's that?
Hopefully, we'll have that.
Well, listen.
We have to have it
I
before
think-
tomorrow night.
I think, and please, I don't want to speak for the rest of the board. Hopefully, listen, we're not looking to obstruct what you guys are trying to accomplish, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the East Hampton town residents' interests are accommodated. I think John's comments regarding preference to residents over transients, I think there should be, if there isn't, there should be some pretty clear language in there that identifies that. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself battling. At some point, you may find yourself battling with some resident or non-resident that feels, I had a mooring last year, therefore I'm vested, I should have it this year. But I do think that our original discussion about this outer mooring field and our agreement to the legislation 8 years ago was with the understanding that residents of East Hampton would be accommodated and would not be charged differently for moorings as such. So listen, if we can do that, that'd be great. Obviously, is this something the village board's looking to vote on tomorrow?
Yes.
Or are they looking for a presentation pending some adjustments to this?
Well, ideally to vote on it tomorrow so that we can begin the application process. Because we haven't sent out any applications to anyone for the mooring field.
Okay, what about final language on this resolution?
So you see from there's the two pieces. There's the one from the legal, where we just have to date. That's the part that's blank. And that will be adopting the new chart by resolution. And then the policies and procedure piece is the first time we've drafted it this way so that people can, really understand what are the policies and procedures that Harbor Master is responsible for going through. Making sure to the point that there's insurance, there's, preserving the water quality, making sure.
Yeah, but you know what I don't see in here? I see no language in here that prioritizes residents of Sag Harbor or East Hampton.
Well, I have a question about that. I mean, last year you had 60 moorings. How many people wanted a mooring, didn't get one?
None.
Well, but that's pretending that you have a crystal ball and that you can look into the future, and it's always going to be that way.
So, not to cut you off, Jim, but that's why we're going with the number of 85, so we don't have to go through this in 10
Yeah.
years.
All right, but Bob, I'd like to see I'm going to be honest with you, I'd like to see some language in there that solidifies that thought, honestly. The other thing I'd like to see in this, concurrent with this mooring field, is show what's been defined as the eelgrass beds.
Sure.
And show how this is getting mitigated. If that means that you don't have 113 designated sites on this draft and it drops back a little bit to accommodate it, let's do that. Because this, you know what it is? We had a conversation last Monday. Clearly, you guys are not all completely on the same page with each other. This is not, from what I'm seeing, is a clear consensus here. And it did does raise, as a consequence, it raises concerns on our end.
Jim, I can say that we're on the same page on a lot of these things, okay? Probably the majority of them.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm mostly
and-
Catholic.
Excuse me?
I'm mostly Catholic. Does that mean I'm a saint? No.
Well, I think that there's some differences of opinion as to where some of the moorings should go.
I'm going to be honest with you, John. I wish when you guys came in here, that you came in here as with these issues hammered out and a united presentation. I don't like, John, I don't like using this board as an opportunity or as a pulpit to battle these things. I really would like to have seen these things done before you got here. Now, we met last Monday. I was really hoping that the consequence of that meeting was to have all of this stuff done before you came to us, because you got to put yourself in my position right now. I'm feeling all good about this, and there you come, well, you guys are saying this, and John, well, we're mostly on the same page. Well, if you're mostly on the same page, why the hell are you getting up and you guys being separate? That's all.
Well, I'm trying to be honest about there being a difference of opinion.
Okay.
And Jim, let me say that, you talk about the eelgrass. I got an email at 8:30 yesterday morning, asking about the eelgrass and trying to work out where the eelgrass was and what changes need to be made to the chart so we could be sure that we weren't allowing moorings. There is a draft chart that shows clearly where the eelgrass is. We've been in touch with Cornell Cooperative Extension, who's mapped the eelgrass. They have given us a chart of where the eelgrass is. The chart was dated 2022, and so I had to ask, are there any changes for 2023? The answer was no. Excuse me?
We were just getting the update to make sure.
Yeah, so I mean, all that's being done. Unfortunately, it didn't get done in time to have all of that resolved before we came before you today. But I think the important thing is that we're working on it, and hopefully we'll have it resolved by tomorrow night. But I want to give you the true picture of it. And
You're asking, we're here for our support on something that there's still some loose ends here.
So the goal from the very beginning was to bring organization to an area that,
Excuse me 1 second. Can the speakers go up to the podium at least so I can pick you up a little bit better?
absolutely.
Thank you.
So the goal from the very beginning, which I think we shared with you last week as well as now, is to bring organization to an area that perhaps was a little bit haphazard. And we wanted to really have very specific points where people would have their moorings or anchor their boats. In saying that, we also want to make sure we're doing safety and water quality as with regard to the seagrass. And we had gotten the original seagrass map last week, and we wanted to make sure, because there was, and I think we shared this, additional planting that had been done of new eelgrass by the Cornell Education Group in the fall. And we wanted to make sure that those were in the exact spots where we had this, because that's where they're trying to grow.
I get that.
So all of it is pretty consistent. I'm not sure, thought we were all on the same page, so I was a little bit taken aback, to be quite honest. And we will, as soon as we have the update from Nelson Pope and Voorhees, we will share that with you.
Okay, but here's the deal. You guys have a meeting, Village has a meeting tomorrow.
Tomorrow night, yes.
All right, when's their next meeting?
It would be the second Tuesday in March, which I don't have that exact date. We're always the second Tuesday, so maybe just making it up March 12th, I don't know. It is the 12th.
Because here's the deal. I'm very reluctant to put a motion forth to acquiesce to this whole thing without seeing the whole package. And we meet every other week. So we have another meeting between now and the end of the month. Bob, how critical is tomorrow's meeting to you?
It's critical because we've already had numerous voters looking for their applications to put.
Yeah, can I ask why this is why this is happening on the 12th of February?
Well, we were waiting for New York State to get back to us, and that took a couple months.
Yeah.
So, we had to go through the
Well, I mean,
proper process.
yeah, I understand the process, but there is such a thing as running concurrent applications. Okay, any application can be approved pending any modifications that DEC or New York State might have put on things. So, you're kind of making a crisis here for us that should not be.
Truth be told, Jim, we thought this was going to be a simple process. And I didn't think we were going to get the opposition that we've gotten. Problem is, if we did nothing and just and this has got nothing to do with you guys, but if we did nothing and just let it be a free-for-all out there, we could have 300 moorings out there. For the amount of space that's there, that could have happened. And this is not your problem. This is our problem, with as far as trying to get this managed. I mean, you and I have spoken about this, but I just feel that we get opposition every time we try to do something, and it's wrong.
Yeah, well, that's part of the process.
I just wonder, it seems to me that your concerns really center on the resident preference issue. And my question is, could some language be added to this resolution to the effect of satisfying that concern?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
The most expeditious way of dealing with this would be the way it was kind of dealt with the last time, was where we were represented at the village meeting.
Would you like to come to our village meeting?
I really hate the whole idea, but you know what it sounded like.
I believe though, in 2016 and in 2019, it was a letter between the mayor.
When they drafted the legislation back in 16.
Initially 16 and then.
Rick Drew and I attended that meeting. And if it's okay with the other members of our board, it might be a way of assuaging some concerns that we might have here. And if this is something that is going to get voted on and some modifications to the draft will be made at the meeting, it might be a neat and tidy way of getting it done and me not losing sleep over, whatever the hell John Parker's up to next week,
I also just realized East Hampton schools are closed tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm sure Sag Harbor is going to be closed tomorrow. What are the chances of your board meeting tomorrow?
The mayor, I spoke with the mayor, I don't know, maybe about 3:00 today. And he said we may move it all to Zoom, depending, because we always do have partial Zoom. So that was a potential. I can't say, we don't know.
What time is your meeting scheduled?
6 p.m.
o'clock?
So I think he was under the belief, he wasn't looking to cancel it, thinking that if in fact we do get accumulation, but by the end of the day, it's easy to get to a meeting, that's why he wasn't looking to cancel. I think the worst is going to be in the morning. And so, or worst case, if it is, we think it's smarter to cancel, we could just make it all Zoom. So he was waiting to hear from our council if we moved it all to Zoom. Is that fine for us voting on things we need to vote on? But certainly we can look at, adding some language to say that, residents are always prioritized over non-residents. And
no, listen, I don't have a problem attending. I'd like to hear personally. I'm interested and concerned enough. I'd rather hear what ultimately gets voted on.
great.
John, I don't know whether you're interested.
My feeling is if you're happy with including that language in a draft, you could send it to us.
Oh, absolutely.
tomorrow before the meeting, we could kind of, we could
Well, and
give support contingent on
We
that
can make a
language.
motion, yeah,
At this point.
pending.
Feel comfortable with that, John? Why don't you make a motion?
Are you guys comfortable with that?
well, I mean, I do have to talk to the mayor and
Right.
other trustees, so I'm gonna have to go through the proper process. And that's what I would do.
So I'll make a motion that we support this plan of Sag Harbors, contingent on language being added to the resolution relative to favoring residents' acquisition of moorings in this field.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And we will also share the map that's going to designate the eelgrass, and you'll see all that as well.
That'd be great.
Right. And, look forward to, experimenting on these new moorings and, as new technology comes and we can all
Sure.
be a lot smarter in helping to preserve and protect the water quality. That's absolutely a goal.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and nice to meet you.
John, just give her your last name for our minutes.
Oh, John Parker.
Parker, and you're a Sag Harbor resident?
Yes, yeah, I'm the vice chair of the Harbor Committee.
All right. Okay. Next, we have Peter Topping, Eelgrass Seeding Project, and Robert, you're both together?
Yeah.
That's,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so please state your name first and then.
Yep. My name's Peter Topping. I'm the executive director and baykeeper of Peconic Baykeeper. And I'm also a former bay management specialist from East Hampton town. I worked here for close to 8 years. And the reason I'm here tonight is in support of Rob Vasilith of Save Environmental. He's going to speak a bit about his project that he's been working on, I know he met with the trustees last year as well. And the project entails collecting eelgrass seeds, which are then glued to juvenile hard clams, which are then seeded back in restoration appropriate areas. We're looking at Nat Peak Harbor, which is one of the few spots in East Hampton town waters. I believe there's a small patch in 3 Mile Harbor near the head of the harbor, and Nat Peak Harbor are the only enclosed embayments in East Hampton that I'm aware of that still support eelgrass, that are kind of in semi-enclosed areas. So I was speaking with Rob a bit about this project. He's worked with Barley, with the East Hampton Town Shellfish Hatchery, and also Peconic Baykeeper has a sister organization or program, which is the Long Island Sound Keeper. We're separate organizations, but there's a gentleman there, Bill Lucy, who's worked with Rob with eelgrass restoration in the Long Island Sound. So he kind of looped me into this. And so what we're looking to do is work as a nonprofit partner with Save Environmental, and our intention is to apply for East Hampton Town Water Quality Improvement Plan funding through the CPF, kind of on a pilot scale this time around. If that's not successful, we'll seek alternative funding. But I just wanted to kind of introduce myself as kind of the sponsor of this project, and I'll leave it up to Rob to explain what he's done so far and kind of what our plans are. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Robert Basilith. I came before the board last January, I believe, and asked for your support in adopting my project to grow eelgrass in conjunction with the East Hampton Hatchery and the waters of East Hampton. And I'm here today to to let you know how that went, because I haven't been back since to really talk about it. But so last July, I started collecting the eelgrass seeds for this project, and it carried over into June. And I have a repository where I keep these seeds, and I was able to clean them up, and then I got to the process where I worked with Wally Dunn from the East Hampton Hatchery, and he provided these beautiful hatchery clams he grew, and I provided the seeds, and we started gluing some seeds to the clams. And along the way, I managed to work with the East Hampton High School Environmental Club, with Aubrey Peterson, guidance counselor from the high school. And I did a workshop in the high school with the East Hampton High School Environmental Club. And I gotta tell you, I was really impressed with their engagement. They were interested, and the work they performed. I had the short opportunity to tell them about the importance of eelgrass. I got to explain to them how we were gonna do this work with gluing seeds to clams, and then we actually got to do the work. I have an app on my phone, so I take a picture of all these trays of clams that the students assembled and made this product with, and I counted up all the clams that were done in a short amount of time, over a couple hours. The students produced 1,907 clams that had seeds glued on them. They glued 8,000 seeds in that short amount of time, all the seeds that I had. And yeah, I was really impressed with that, but they enjoyed it. I asked the students if they were interested in doing this again. They said yes. And they told me that they liked helping their nearby waterways where they like to hang out and play and swim. And they were happy to have the opportunity to do it. Going from there, after this product was made, I took them back to the hatchery and let them sit in the tanks so the clams could stay alive and the seeds could stay wet. And then a few days later, I think it was December 15th, I brought a machine out that I built to lay out these clams in a high rate of speed, and in a systematic way that it patterns the seed floor, kind of like a corn sowing machine would do in a cornfield. So I brought the machine out, and Wally, she was able to help me get, we got this machine. It's kind of heavy. It's about 300 pounds. Got it onto his work skiff, and we went out to Napalm Harbor, where we had earlier got the permits that are on bottom, aquaculture permits, amended to glue eelgrass seeds with them to satisfy the DEC. And we made it to the spot. And then we loaded up the machine with the clams and hit the green button, and it all went. And the whole project was successful. All the things I wanted to do, all aspects of it were done. It was successful in that aspect. As far as the success of the eelgrass growing, well, we're still waiting on that. And tonight I'm here to ask for a continuing resolution by the trustees to continue planting in Napalm Harbor with Napalm Harbor with Wally Dunn, Pete Toppings, and Cornell Cooperative Extension, and Save the Sound in a more productive, robust planting operation.
Bob, do you have the areas already designated where you're going to do phase 2 of this?
Yes, it's in the same spot, but adjacent to that location within a few hundred yards.
Barley faxed emailed a letter that he asked me to read in support of this. I'd just like to read that, and then I have a question for Bob and Pete. So I'm in full support of the seed clam and eelgrass project being presented by Rob Vasaluth of Save Environmental. As you know, we seeded thousands of clams with eelgrass seeds, adhered to them last fall in Napeague, and we'll be monitoring them this summer. We also submitted a letter of support to be included in the East Hampton Water Quality Improvement Program's grant application in support of the collaborative project between Save Environmental, Peconic Baykeeper, and Steve Schott of Cornell Cooperative Extension. Thank you for your continued support. Barley Dunn, East Hampton Town Shellfish Hatchery. And the question I had, kind of a half question, half suggestion. Have you incorporated any sort of a test or a control plot that you would seed and protect so that you sort of factor out predation on the clam seed in, determining the success of the eelgrass shoots actually emerging? Predation is going to be an issue with the clam seed.
That's a really good question. The thing with growing eelgrass is predation is only one of 7 detrimental things that occurs to eelgrass that hampers it or stops it from growing. So I accept predation in my work as part of the job. So when I do this planting, when I did it with the Nature Conservancy in the Great South Bay, we put all these clams in the water, and the water's very shallow there, and it's only about 4 feet, and we saw a lot of knobbed whelks, which are known to eat clams, and Carl Boo said to me, well, that's a problem. I said, well, yeah, it is, but, they're here, they're part of the environment, and when that knobbed whelk eats that clam, it's bringing oxygen into the soil, it's kind of tilling the soil, it's making the soil conducive to grow plants in. And the clams that escape from getting eaten by that knobbed whelk, they'll dig more holes in other places, and they'll continue to be the engineers that they are and bring oxygen into the soil, so it's all good. The other factors that are really hard to get over and with eelgrass is the algae blooms and the high water temperatures. That's probably the reason why Napeg is suffering so badly, but it's also one of the places where it still remains in East Hampton, is that the water temperature is so warm there that it passes the thermal limit of what eelgrass can survive. However, there's a small spot in Napeg Harbor that does hold eelgrass, and it's believed that there's upwelling cold water, which just might be enough to keep it going. So the work that I did there, I hope it's going to grow really well, but we won't know until about the end of June how it's doing, that success rate of that growing. And if it stays growing for a long period of time, no one knows. It's kind of risky in that aspect, but if it does grow, it's going to naturally expand, hopefully, and have add to the gene pool of the genetic diversity that's been bottlenecked in that one spot, that it's running out of its DNA diversity.
Yeah, I think it's a really important project. Maybe you could come back here with a student and tell us how it's doing in June, hopefully with good results.
I absolutely will.
I'll make a motion to support the Save Environment Eelgrass Restoration for another year, at least.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I think we should also consider sending a letter to the CPF Water Quality Committee in support of their application for grant funding for this. I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
May I interrupt? I'm sorry, Robert, didn't you also need a letter for the project funding? You needed a letter
So,
wasn't that part of your request?
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
so it's either a letter of support or.
the letter,
Or a resolution.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that wasn't.
And John, to your point about the predation, having worked for the shellfish hatchery, I get it. So, one thing is most of these clams are going to be put out kind of late fall, so there's going to be a little bit of a less active predation when it's going on. But another thing that we're trying to do that Save the Sound is doing kind of in conjunction with some of their projects is they're actually working on a peer-reviewed scientific study. So we've been in touch with Steve Schott from Cornell. He's going to be helping with the monitoring. And part of that is going to entail, in addition to doing a restoration plot, there will be separate 1 meter quadrats kind of adjacent where there's going to be kind of different, 10 clams in this one, 5 in that one. And we'd certainly be amenable to trying one with some sort of mesh covering to see if.
Yeah, the reason I crossed my mind is that when I was at the hatchery many years ago, clams were an issue. Clam survival became an issue. And one season we basically experimented with different planting techniques and methods of protecting the clam seed and compared them. There was no protection. There was different methods of protecting. And so we had great success with heavily planting seed and covering it with mesh, much like they do in Virginia commercially. And I mean, we had tremendous survival under the netting. So I just thought it might be interesting. You could even do it in boxes, just take some of the seed with the eelgrass seed on it. And, you should get full survival of those clams, or 80% at least survival of those clams, and get a good idea of how the eelgrass is growing on the clams, taking predation of the clams out of the picture entirely, in addition to the different, planting schematics that you're going to try. Anyways, just to say.
Yeah, no, it's a valid suggestion.
As well, I'd like to mention that I didn't mention that in Connecticut, I'm working with Save the Sound, Connecticut University, and a private company called the Remote Ecologist to do test this method I have in 3 locations using this scientific method that we developed to prove or disprove this method. And with it, we're going to have data sensors that were put in for such things as oxygen, dissolved oxygen, carbon, ocean acidification, and just plain out water quality. So, a part of what I'm doing, it has a need to have a proof of concept, which I haven't been able to get funding for and ever, except for Save the Sound did, and they put it to good use by employing these scientists from Connecticut College and UConn and the remote ecologists to get the science, to get the data. So last year I did 2 projects, which is here in New York and one in Connecticut, but I didn't elaborate on that one in Connecticut, and that's the second part of what I'm doing is getting the data. So in doing this work this year, I want to work with the scientists to get the same data with the same scientific method to, add to the base of our knowledge of what works and what doesn't work. And that's very important to do. As far as, but I also wanted to touch base on before I leave is about the anchor routes when it comes to eelgrass. And I know a little bit about it. I'm not an expert on it, but it's used in Europe to protect eelgrass, these floating anchor routes. And the problem, I believe, why we don't have it here and it's not used here is because there's no law that dictates that needs to be done. And the problem with that is you can't require someone to have them if there's an insurance liability, because if the anchor breakout doesn't hold like it's supposed to, who's going to pay for that? Who's going to have that liability? And these boats are pretty expensive. So that's the big hurdle with that. And I just want to let you all know about that, what I know about that. And I think it's an absolutely great idea to do. And it's not just saving the eelgrass, it's saving all the habitat and the species that live in that eelgrass. With that, thank you very much. And,
Thanks, Robert.
I'll come back and maybe I'll rope in a couple students. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Okay, Matt, do we have anybody in the green room?
You have 0 calls on the line. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Billy Mack, who's supposed to be on Zoom.
Show up in person, sorry.
On behalf of Michael Schultz for Phragmite removal at 1 Eel Cove, Wayne Scott.
Hi, everybody. Billy Mack, First Coastal. Part one of these, in case you need to see what I have. Can I give you this? Sorry. Thanks. Actually, I don't even know what's on that. Kristen in my office put it together. So we'll find out. This is a pretty simple project, actually. You guys had granted permission for this a couple years ago. The permits lapsed, so we're looking to renew it.
Were you the contractor on that?
We were not.
It was somebody else.
It was somebody, actually, I don't know who did the actual physical work. But we're doing the association, which is right next door, and we're going to be filing for the neighbor adjacent to this as well. This is number one. We're going to be filing for number three. Follow up on that. And these guys had done this collectively together. So again, the project is to manage the Phragmite growth along the shoreline. And typically that's best done with prescribed cuttings 3 times a year, 3 to 4 times a year. Usually it's early mid-spring, mid-summer, and late summer. And by cutting the Phragmites, and it's just the Phragmites, we're very good at leaving the other native plants alone. We found that a lot of the banked seed that's in the soils will actually grow, and there's a lot of native material that flourishes when you allow the sunlight to get to it. So those prescribed cuttings really seem to help. And they've been successful in other areas in the town, and we're looking to apply the same process to this property again.
Okay. Yeah. Bill, you're saying this property hasn't been cut for a couple years?
I think the permit expired last year. So I don't know the last time it was cut.
Was it cut last?
I don't think it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it a case, do you have DEC on this?
We do have DC. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a case where you're probably looking to go in here from here to March?
Yeah.
To do your initial cut?
Exactly.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood.
Cool. And happy to meet with anybody. We did meet, so it's a pretty straightforward. There's limited strands there right now, and I think it's because of the efforts they've done, and we'd like to continue that.
Yeah, I met Billy out there. It looked good. I'll make a motion to approve the application.
But you're not making the application for number 3.
Not yet.
Okay.
We just got all that paperwork together. We needed an updated survey and some other items.
That was across the pond.
It's just adjacent.
Adjacent, right around.
Now, one is just to the south of the association property?
Yep.
South and
Yep.
east?
And then this is just south and east of this. That's number 3, yeah.
All right. I second
Does the association have any rules or guidelines or
Not when it comes to private property. They do manage their own, and they're pretty active on that. So it's one of the few areas that actually is flourishing right now with very little Phragmite. And the plan is after a period of time, the more you maintain this, the less Phragmites grow and the less maintenance you have to do. So it's good. Thank you.
Jim second?
So you made a motion.
He made a motion, I seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you guys very much.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Billy. All right, next. Thank you. That's all right. Okay. There may be one person ahead of you, okay?
No problem.
Matt, do we have Lisa Poyer on Zoom?
Negative, but you do have a Burt Wave.
He was here for Sag Harbor.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. With Brian Brian Schlitt. Okay, Brian wants to talk to us about solar panels on, I think, 2 houses in Lazy Point.
My father and I both own a house in Lazy Point. 237, and Russell is my father, is in 161. We're both interested in putting solar panels. I don't know what your stand is on that. I don't know if we can pursue it or not. Just figured it was better to come in and check before we went any further.
To be honest, this is the first time somebody's come in and asked that question.
We have no interest in storing any of the energy. It'll all go back to life. I don't want batteries on my property or anything.
You can, if you want, you can store it.
Did you want to put the panels on your house or?
On the roof.
Personally,
Renewable energy, sounds good.
Yeah, have you had somebody come out and look at your property?
I did. I've been doing a little bit of research this winter. I just don't want to go any further if it's not something you guys are okay with.
Okay, we'll.
You need a building permit for that?
Yes, we'll make a motion here in a second, but just to let you know how things work. We don't give you a permit to do that. We don't have the authority other than to lease you the land to give you a permit. What we will give you is a letter that we've considered what you want to do. We have no issues with it, but you're still going to have to go through the town, the process with the town for a natural resources special permit.
Okay.
Pretty much every property, Danielle, requires that before you can apply for a building permit. But I personally don't see any issues with it. The only thing we would probably have an issue, and I think the town would as well, is if it wasn't roof mounted and you were going to do something that was going to change the footprint of what you got going on in it, because those properties are pretty.
Everything will remain the same. Both of our houses they're both out of the tree line, so they have good sun all day.
I'd like to make a motion that we provide you with a letter in support of this. Does anybody want to second that?
Second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Have a good night.
What's that?
DEC.
Which side of the road are you on? You on water side?
Both of us are across the street.
Okay. You probably will not need DEC approval, but
And both our houses are on the high side of the road.
You're on Bayview too? So you're on the corner of Bayview and Lazy?
No, both on Shore Road.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, what's gonna happen is when you apply with the town, just check the jurisdiction and they'll be able to tell you whether you're gonna need DEC. I don't think you will.
Okay. There's nobody on the road that has it. They are on Cranberry. On the way in, I see quite a few houses have.
Okay.
So,
Hey, good luck.
thank you very much. Have a good night.
Right.
All right. Okay, a little confused. Okay, we're supposed to have Lisa Poyer of Twin Forks permitting to renew a trustee permit. Number 422 issued to 75 Waters Edge Road for bulkhead replacement. Doesn't seem to be here.
I'm gonna be honest, Francis, if this is a simple renewal, it does not require the board to vote on it, so that could be handled administratively. I'm gonna guess that the reason for renewal is they didn't have the other agencies yet, and they may still be in the, you know what
I
this,
can't hear anything. That's my
Allison, do you know what the circumstances are on the renewal here is? Is it a case they didn't have some of the other
They
agencies?
didn't have their other permits. They haven't been able to do the work yet.
Okay,
She just
yeah.
needs to
So listen,
extend the permit to do the work. Same terms and
I would
conditions.
say that we just collect the fee, renew the permit, but just make sure that the documents that we're renewing are the same as what we approved a year ago.
Is this the same,
I think so.
administrator? Yeah, Same people who
I mean, it's just a renewal, regular.
right. But what I'm asking is that, I'm sorry?
They're just requesting a renewal of the permit.
Right. No, I understand that.
It's the same expediter.
Yeah. I'm just not,
Name didn't ring a bell.
no, it doesn't ring a bell with me either. That's why I'm curious. All right, let's move on to new business.
Did you vote on it?
Making that
No,
administrative?
administrative. All right. New business, beaches, East Hampton Village, proposed changes to the village code. Are you up on this, Jim?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm totally unaware of this.
Chris handled it. I thought he'd be here. He said it should fall into beaches jurisdiction, and he recommended that the commenting period is in 2 days. And we should get back to the village with
We got draft language to review, and Chris had comments.
Chris made a recommendation, and the hearing is in 2 days, so I think, yeah.
So he had a comment to number 2, village board at the request of the East Hampton Village Police Chief, and upon notice to and written approval by the East Hampton trustees. I believe he added that.
Yeah, the changes.
Yes. Has the right to temporarily close or restrict any beach or portion thereof at any time if deemed appropriate and necessary for public safety purposes. And he wants to remove, the village board shall advise the trustees of any such closure in a manner deemed reasonable under the circumstances, but failure to do so shall not affect the validity of such closure or restriction.
It seemed to me like a fairly substantial change.
Well, I think given the present administration, I think that we'll find it more reasonable. In the past, we had issues with the village where they would entertain, vote on legislation, and we completely left out of the loop here.
I had actually attended a meeting about this, however, they didn't have the language available at the time.
But I don't know if Chris submitted this to the village or.
No.
So
Not yet.
this is happening in 2 days?
I would say that we should probably.
Gotta let the village know
I think
that.
we should.
We'll submit this language proposed.
Yeah, I think this is good language here, because otherwise it's after the fact and you can't really do anything.
Right.
Well, and that was always a problem that we had years past, is that you had this language on legislation that basically says if we failed to notify you, well, yeah, it didn't change the subsequent thing. And really, we're not going to do anything about it either. It was really, it tended to incite rather than, it would have almost been better if they forgot to put anything in there about that, because then you could almost say, well, they didn't think of it.
Anyway, I think the wording is good that Chris put in.
The village did submit this to us for comment, so
Right.
it's not like they're trying to.
Yeah. Hey, Allison, what's the situation with Chris? Is he out of town?
He was unavailable, he was out of town, got things confused in terms of.
There was
the meeting,
confusion
couldn't get-
about
He sent some.
whether
Confusion
this.
about meeting dates, and he couldn't get a flight back in time.
He's on his way.
He's on a
having
flight right
trouble
now.
with planes and stuff like that.
Okay.
He did say he'd be available by email and likely his phone. If there were any questions, we could reach out and ask him in the moment.
I don't have any questions. This is pretty clear to me.
He was just looking to make sure
Trying to
that
do,
you all had seen it and.
I don't know how this has gone in the past. I mean, if they want us to comment on legislation, we make what I think is a pretty substantial change to their language.
Then it's going to be up to them to either accept it or start have a conversation before they pass it. I don't know. Right?
Well, how it's gone.
I mean,
I don't understand understand who made these changes? Did Chris make the
Chris
red?
Chris
Carrillo.
Carrillo, our
Okay.
attorney, made them. Listen, that makes sense to me. Question is,
I just wondered if the village would have an issue with it, since
only one way to find out.
we should let them know sooner rather than later.
Well, I think like tomorrow,
Yeah.
realistically.
We'll submit it to them tomorrow and see where it goes.
Well, do we submit it as we think this is better language, but it's up to you guys to do what you
No,
want?
we think this
Or
is
do
what
we-
we'd like to see.
Yeah.
You know,
Could Celia write the letter? We don't have Chris. To the village.
I think Allison can write
Yeah.
the cover letter attached to it. I think we're okay here.
I think it should be fairly straightforward language, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You feel this is important.
We good?
Yep.
Okay.
May I interrupt, Francis? I'm sorry. The gentleman that is on Zoom, Bert, just requested to address the board regarding those side harbor moorings via the chat.
We're already past it.
I know.
We already approved.
Okay.
Voted and approved.
No,
I'm just reading. and
we
asking
voted pending,
Pending.
seeing
Right.
the changed legislation.
Have his say.
Is he on the Harbor Management Committee?
He's from Shelter Island. He puts out some moorings in the Sag Harbor field. He called me this afternoon asking about the meeting. I gave him the Zoom link. I think he might just not have known that when he was supposed to break in.
Okay. What's his name? Bert.
Bert. Yeah, maybe it's within a matter of that. That's John's right.
Okay, Matt.
Okay, stand by. Bert, can you please unmute yourself and then go ahead and talk? There you go.
Okay, hi. Hey, thank you for, I didn't know, I'm usually not, shy about talking, but I didn't know how to, what the protocol was about breaking in. Thanks. Yeah, I've been putting in moorings over in that mooring field for 30 plus years. Actually, when Billy was up there, I put one in for his uncle. That was one of the first ones I put in probably 30 some years ago. And I see that David was talking about conservation moorings. I do those moorings. I do helical moorings that, you keep chain off the bottom with using floating gear, usually some kind of elastic strap or, besides chain. Just a couple of general comments. I think it's Jim, you're talking about favoring, residents over there. And I'm from Shelter Island, so I know the rules over here. And we haven't entertained out-of-town people in our area, and I don't think you would probably in your 1,500 feet, but you're talking about from 1,500 to 5,000 feet. And, if you're a resident of East Hampton, it's probably not a desirable place to keep a boat, so I wouldn't put too much worry about East Hampton people saying, gee, that's where I want to keep my boat. It's really for transient people who are coming in and they're not really leaving their boat that often, or if they do, they're using the launch to get out there just for a short period of time during the summer. But the conservation moorings are good, but they have limits to right now about how large a boat you can put out there, put on them. So I would say I do have a couple of spots there that have those helicals. And a couple of them, I tie them together, but I'm using chain, so they're not really having the full effect of scouring the bottom because I do have scope on them. So, there is that, like I said, there is that limit, and it might be 40, it might be 60 feet, and a lot of these boats are that are out there are larger than that. So the question is, when you're talking about how many boats to put out there, the if you allow a lot of area to be just anchorage, then, I guess, Sag Harbor wasn't going to get the fee, but now I guess you're going to change that so that they can get the fee. And then, but, I have a friend who lives in Sag Harbor Village, and he's also a mooring contractor. And I would think that would be something that you guys would want to support within your town, the businesses within the town. And I mean, I'm trying, that would hurt me a little bit, but, the guy, I think that makes sense for you guys to think about, because, that's following the money, right? Because, we're out there trying to make money. And if you want to support your town and people in it, you'd support people in the village who are in the business. So that's something to consider with how this mooring field should be run. So, I also have an oyster farm, a lease with Scalp, so I know Barley pretty well, but I'm over in Southampton with that. So, so I know I got a big interest in, protecting the eelgrass around here, because, some of that hits state waters, and we all like to scallop. So I appreciate what you're doing with that. But, one of the things that Sag Harbor is trying to do, that I think needs to be worked out, and that's probably with them, is how that $350 fee is going to be administrated if we put in moorings and we want to have them as transient moorings, but we don't have a customer yet. So that's kind of what Bob Borey and the contractors have to come up with. So that's one of the unresolved things that I think the village is going to be trying to discuss. So anyway, that's just going to give you a little background from somebody who's in the business, and just throwing it out there for you. I know you already passed it. I don't think it's a bad thing. All the contractors out there work really well together. We don't have too much of a problem with each other. We work it out. We don't want to see derelict boats out there. It's bad for everybody. And we're pretty conscious about the quality of customers that we take. And, we don't want to hurt the environment or damage property. So thank you for your time.
All right. Go ahead, John.
I think your comments about, or your questions or your concerns about the fees and the contractors, you should probably address that to the village trustees at the meeting that they're going to have 2 days or whenever it is.
I think to a degree, the comments you're making about contractors holding moorings for transient, and then essentially you're going to rent the motel room out or that mooring out to individuals. I think some of that's going to be somewhat self-regulating. One of the issues that did come up, I think there's a new a marina that's a new purchase that the owner had approached the harbor master about needing a bunch of additional transient moorings. And, the comments here as we've got them is, if you're paying for these moorings and you're going to see if you can't glom all the pig tickets to that Rolling Stone show and try and scalp them later, it tends to kind of work against you, because as a contractor, there is limited interest in the number of transient moorings. It's very easy to find yourself sort of overcommitting and not really needing the number of moorings. That's been of our experience in 3 Mile. So I think that's probably something that hopefully will self-regulate. And in the absence of that, I think that's where the harbor master basically steps in and says, listen, unless you can demonstrate the need for all of these additional transient moorings, I really can't entertain the number you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. I'm not, I don't got the deep pockets of that marina over there, so I'm not laying out $15,000 for 50 permits. I've got 3 moorings out there right now for customers. I got the 2 helixes, and I've got a 4,000-pound pyramid out there for a catamaran. And we're all trying to understand what the rules are so we can play the game right. And I only want to move that thing once, when the grid comes up. So that's kind of why I was interested in and attending your meeting tonight, and that's why I'm making my comments. But thank you for your perspective on that. I definitely agree with you that there would be if you're not there selling them, or if you're not, you could definitely overpopulate it with some moorings and wait for the sun to shine on them.
All right, well, hey, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bert. Thanks, Bert.
It's gonna be club season.
Okay, move on. Lazy Point, we have a request from Gerard Butts to add Susan Farrell to his lease at 196 Shore Road, lot number 27N. Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-85-9-1-9.1. I believe Chris Carrillo reviewed this and had no.
I don't have.
He recommended that we approve that.
Who's on Lazy Point now? Yours.
And Tim.
Who else?
You run out.
Tim Garneau. Okay. I don't have a problem with this. This is actually fine. Pending basically having all the paperwork in order, I'd like to make a motion. We approve this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Is Tim on here?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Hey, Tim. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were
No
here.
worries. I'm following along.
How come your little picture's not up there?
You could see this.
Oh, there you go.
All right. And then we have another request from Daniel Newworth to sublet his Lazy Point lease at 216 Shore Road, lot number 21N, to Justin Schwartz, Suffolk County tax map number 300-85-1-1.5. Chris is recommending that Jim has an understanding of violations and he'll let him advise on this.
Yeah, with the hot dogs.
Yeah.
Right.
This, just to give some new board members a little bit of background on this applicant. Okay, this same individual, Mr. Schwartz, is it? Schwartz? Okay, did a sublet on a neighboring property last spring, or about this time last year. He came before our board. Like any of the sub-lessees came through, and because he's in a business, he's a food truck business, we were very careful to explain that these properties are not for commercial purposes. Okay, that means if you're in the food truck business, you're neither operating the food trucks out of the property, storing the food trucks on that property, or storing the food trucks on any of the trustee-owned properties down there. Now, this tenant had some falling out apparently with the previous landlord and is now applying to this board for another sublet for a different property. I have a real problem with this. His 2 trailers were left on trustee property with no permission. Okay, we got several complaints from property owners, from our tenants down there complaining about it, because actually the area where this guy left these things is where people routinely store their boats. The trustees are aware of it. It's been an ongoing, very benign use of the property. Allison contacted the individual. Allison, that was what, several months ago?
At least 2.
Okay. We've had numerous excuses, to include being trapped in a hostile nation. But he's back, from what I understand. We're fielding this application for a sublet, and quite frankly, we want rid of his trailers. And I think any sublet we give to this individual, Daniels, I see as being problematic. I would make a motion that we deny this sublet. The trailers are still there.
Is he still in the other sublet?
He has vacated the other sublet, and now he's basically trying to get into this other one. So.
You want to hear Chris's suggestion?
Absolutely.
Okay. He advises that this doesn't have to be rushed and it could be tabled tonight. Perhaps we give him a timeline to cure the violations. And if he doesn't within that timeline, we outright deny the application.
If he doesn't
cure the violations within the timeline.
What are the violations?
Well, the violations right now are these 2 commercial vehicles that are basically, I'm going to describe it as been abandoned on trust property.
They're in an area where people store boats.
Some issues with the
owner,
They're
right?
like 2
previous house.
over the street.
Were there violations in that?
Well, there was, apparently it was a somewhat acrimonious departure
Plenty of people
from from his previous landlord.
Wasn't there damage on the property?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
for some of the towns.
Damage, cited damage.
John,
Okay, guys.
I'm so sorry. I just want to give you a quick little intro too. You had already asked me to send Dan Newworth a letter stating that there was a violation regarding those trailers on the thing, and gave him a timeline to remove them as well. So that piece had already been taken care of in addition. So I don't know if you want to.
Okay, when does this have to be done by?
That had already passed,
Okay, so if that's already
but I wanted
passed,
to make sure that we updated
Okay.
everybody.
But wait a minute, Dan Newworth is not the guy who left the trailers.
no, he's,
Dan Newworth hasn't sublet anything yet, so
Yes,
No.
yes.
so,
He's living.
why is he being asked to clean this mess up?
he's being asked because he is now the new landlord for the same individual.
He is?
Yes.
That's what we're being asked to.
We're being asked
Yes.
to approve a sublet on Dan Newworth's property.
Do we know that these trailers have not been moved?
Yes, I got a call less than 10 minutes. That's the reason I was late for this meeting. I had a call from one of the residents down near the Lazy Point.
I'm confused. Is he living in Newworth's place? If we're being asked.
I'm gonna suspect that perhaps that is the case. I don't know that. I can tell you where the trailers are living, but I can't tell you where Montaco's living.
On the road.
I don't know. I think we're asking for trouble myself.
They already have trouble.
To deny
We're
or?
being asked to approve another year of trouble.
I'm not saying no.
I second.
No, all I did, Chris made
Okay.
a suggestion, and I was just sharing that with
All right.
the board.
My feeling on this is if we have already given a deadline for the removal of these trailers, and the deadline in that removal has come and gone, I would say at that point, it's a matter of, one, there is no sublet, but the next letter is a new deadline, but that's okay. If you can't get them out of there by then, we'll take care of it.
Has he been totally unresponsive to any of?
No, he's been responsive, but there was some story about being trapped in Ecuador during some civil war or something. And,
Yeah, but the last property he left, didn't he had damaged it?
I don't know any of the particulars
Right,
on
he
that.
damaged it, and I think there was properties missing even. Like, I'm for not approving it as well. Absolutely.
Well, so,
So who's trapped in Ecuador? Is it?
This guy's short.
Guy Justin?
Got out.
Yeah.
Oh, he's back.
Sounds like an excuse.
It was going to be
That
removed.
was
The
Justin
latest, one of the
Schwartz.
latest emails was Wednesday, January 17th, where he said it was going to be moved that week. And then there was some weather and he had to wait for the place that he was going to
Okay,
park
listen,
them. So
I,
that's the last I have.
what recourse do we have if somebody just
okay, you've
moves
got
into a
base.
house there? It doesn't ask.
Violate the lease.
okay, becomes a civil issue because technically the trailers are on our property, private property, so we at our own expense will have to remove these vehicles.
If you were a private landlord, would you renew a lease to this guy?
No, I think this is
No,
just,
I mean, we can't
It's not good
make that
business.
judgment on someone, on a different homeowner. He-
no, it's,
Oh, so
it's
you think-
within our, it's,
We can deny,
we can
Yes.
just deny the sublet.
yes.
Yeah, right.
I would like to make a motion to deny the sublet.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Denied.
Okay. And Allison, I'll work on getting the trailers out of there.
So are we notifying Dan Newworth that it was just denied, correct?
Yes, notify him and then notify the Schwartz fellow.
Better off.
Right now, those things basically are abandoned on our property and give them 10 days to remove them or they'll be removed.
But most of the actions are still here.
All right, let's move on. East Hampton Town Trustee Scholarship, David?
Yeah, just quickly, we're doing our scholarship again this year for $1,500 for a student who will apply, having to do with, marine science, marine biology. So that's just opened up this week and they have until March 11th to apply. And also our scholarship fund, we made $3,400 this year because we put it into that NICE class, NY class, and it's 5%. So that was a good move. Yeah, awesome.
Couple donations too.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get some applicants and I can share those with you guys. All right, that's
Yeah,
it.
that'd be great. Those are fun reads.
Have you guys discussed whether $1,500 is considering maybe upping it at all?
I think the goal, if I can go back to the original intent behind funding this scholarship on an annual basis, is to try and grow your principal to the point that these scholarships are being funded via interest and not principal. So John, every time you change, adjust, add another scholarship, what you're doing in the long term is delaying how long it's going to take to sort of build that fund to the point that it's self-supporting. I know it's frustrating. I would love to see bigger scholarships. I know the fire department that I belong to, we give out, I think, a couple scholarships a year, and they're not a one-year deal. They're for 4 years. They're $2,500 a year for 4 years. It's nice to do it, but you know what? It took us literally 30 years to get to that point. So it's.
I understand that. It just, I think last year we didn't have any applicants or one applicant.
Yeah, one.
We didn't have the dollar amount on the scholarship when they were applying for the students to see.
Sorry?
There was an error in our application last year. We didn't have the amount of the scholarship written.
It'd be nice to get to a point where we're doing things like scholarship that is not just a 1 year or one-time thing, and it's something that's a little more measurable and meaningful.
Right, we're getting there.
Yeah, but we do have more money in than money out.
Yeah.
Right now, so.
Well, the key is, we're putting $10,000 a year in from the trustees. the principal that's in there grew at what, another 1,500 bucks, or was it 3,000?
That's the
3,500.
interest.
Yeah, so listen, it's growing. I mean, in a few years, we'll all probably be dead, but we'll be giving more money away.
I don't think Dave and I probably will be dead.
God bless you.
So how much do we have in there now?
We got 87,000 and we're making 3,400 a year now. So we could, slowly bounce it up a little bit.
When do we get that 10K download normally? First couple months of the year?
After we get.
We usually do some dredge money. Get the check into the dredge money.
Here's the thing, remember, when this started,
Like 12 bucks in
Susan,
there.
it was like $500 scholarship.
Yeah.
We're now talking 1,500, right?
Yeah. I wasn't suggesting, I was just asking.
No, it's good. Maybe next year we go up to two grand.
Yeah, you guys, I'm kind of in the middle of doing this right now because my daughter Lola's a senior, and I think I would actually push to try and get it to $2,500, whether it be this year or next year, just to kind of align. I mean, LVIS has 4 $10,000 ones. $1,500 is definitely on the low side, and everyone's kind of inching up. And if we have the ability through this new fund to inch up, I think it's something we should really consider.
But Tim, if we were to take the full interest that we got this year and applied it to the scholarship, it wouldn't grow next year. I mean, it would be essentially the same amount we got this year.
Well, you know what I would like to say, and I'm not saying no to what Tim's saying or what Dave's saying. We just did this New York class thing. We have no history on this fund as far as its return.
We're doing about as good as we're ever going to do now.
Well, but you know what? I would like to see some sort of track record, some average. And then, yes, if this thing's earning $3,500 a year, and we're still adding another $10,000 in principal to this fund every year, I have no trouble raising the amount we give out to like $2,500. But hey, Tim, the LVIS, you're not looking at their principal amount that they're paying out from. And, they're not funding their scholarships with the previous year's income. They're doing it off interest on, donations that have been made to that, and the only way you can get one of these scholarship funds where it is self-sustaining is where you suck it up and you go through that growth period where you get your principal numbers, and we're getting there. I mean, just 2 years ago, we had nothing even, in fact, we had $200 worth of interest on this money. So it's nice to see that we have gotten money this year, but it doesn't guarantee an increase in the amount of interest we're going to earn on this principal next year. It'd be nice to see some gauge or average.
Jim, I agree. I mean, we got to look. The market had a really nice year, and we may not have another nice year. So
Exactly.
I understand.
So Jim, do you have a number in mind that like a goal you want it to get to that you're happy with?
The principal?
Yeah,
$1 million.
$1 million minimum.
So how do you fund this? Do people know that?
No, we've actually gotten some minor donations, but we've been, what happened is originally, God bless him, Captain William Riceham donated $500 to the East Hampton Town Trustees a couple hundred years ago. And it was for the purpose of educating those that couldn't afford an education in the town of East Hampton. This whole thing, that $500 came and went however many years ago. At some later point, the trustees resurrected the name and sort of the thought behind it and started to issue a $500 scholarship. When it started, it was probably a measurable amount of money. as anybody that's sending kids to college knows today, $500 doesn't go anywhere. I mean, that doesn't even buy you the ferry fees and lunch for bringing your kid to college. But a few years ago, when we reinstituted the permits for dredging in Georgia Pond, the board made a commitment to donate $10,000 of the proceeds from that every year to the scholarship fund. So, you know, the principal has been growing. This year, we had the luxury of one adding principal, and we had the $3,200 or whatever in growth on interest. So, you know, the hope here is to get this to the point that, one, you're not giving out one scholarship, and you're giving it out for 4 years instead of just a one-year thing. But the only way we get there is to be frugal now.
Does that mean every year you pick a new applicant who would get it for 4 years? So you're like overlapping?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our fire
Yeah,
department,
at
we've
some
got,
point, you're
Giving out.
paying 4 people every year.
Yeah.
you know, the fire department in Montauk, they're handling numerous ones. It's not $2,500.
Yeah.
They're paying out whatever it is a year, but we also have a principal amount there that allows us to work off of that interest and not in that dive into the principal.
How'd you guys grow that principal? From taxpayer money, donation?
No, never, it was never taxpayer money. It's department, it's not district. Okay, district and in truth, just for the public's awareness, the growth of this fund has not been taxpayer money. The growth of this fund has been based on proceeds that come to the trustees for the sale of sand out of Georgia Pond.
If people wanted to donate to this, would it be deductible
Yes.
for their taxes, your 501(c)(3) kind of thing?
We're not, no. She says we're not a,
Because if you could, I think there are people who like to donate to funds that manage educational donations.
Yeah, I think the story of this scholarship is for the education of girls who didn't have resources in East Hampton.
Right.
It's an interesting story. Unfortunately, the guy was a slave trader, but that's why his name isn't on the scholarship
At the end of his life, he was a Quaker.
I always thought that a fundraising mailer or something out to the community might actually bring in more money than you might think it would.
I agree. I kind of think people would be generous.
We get some donations, but maybe outreach, people probably don't know about it.
Right, you don't know. So, when you're doing your donations, I wouldn't know this. But
Yeah, I think
it was for the poor children too, not just women. But he did have 3 daughters, so he wanted them to.
And also people that are
Academy.
doing their wills, they might want to, give you a substantial amount.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Here's the thing, guys. We are not March of Dimes, okay, with the East Hampton Town Trustees. We have to be careful and we have to, I think, stay focused on what we are actually elected to do.
Yeah.
And if we create a non-for-profit here, you would almost need to spin that off completely away from the trustees.
The only benefit I see is that you're managing the donations, like when you split, awarding scholarships. And you don't need to actually raise the money, but if you somehow got more money under your control,
Yes.
it's like an economy of scale,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, but I think if we enter into an area where people are gonna look to claim this on their taxes and things like that, that creates, we then have responsibility to the agencies that oversee these
Right, we have to
non-for-profits.
report and.
we don't have.
We have a fairly complicated.
You don't have to solicit.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want
If you're a
to
nonprofit.
make it any more complicated.
I think you'd have to file special tax returns every year.
Yeah, it becomes a whole nother
This
animal.
thing's-
And
This thing is actually growing quite nicely. It was when we all kind of tried to make it better. We started getting the dredge money, we put it toward that. And, you know, it's up to, like, we're making 3,500, you know.
Well, this year,
So, I mean, we keep that up for another.
let's not blow the candles out on the cake
Yeah.
just yet.
Yeah. By the way, I just have a question. There was a mistake I discovered on the previous minutes, which I didn't report to Allison. I don't know if that's old business or new business or.
We'll get to minutes.
Okay.
But to get $1 million, you're right, I actually might, I probably won't be alive. If you keep going, it's gonna take 75 years to get to that.
That fundraising letter out.
There will be a pill in about 10 years to start taking.
No, but listen, you know, like as you start to grow it and as you're not spending all of your interest, it will continue to grow.
Yeah.
It can surprise you how quickly it'll grow.
All right.
Especially when you take some of that money and go to the track.
Yeah.
The football game.
Put it on black or something.
You know, last night was a tough one.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Old business. Trustee record digitization, Series Systems, Inc. Did all of you or most of you get a chance to take a look at our files?
What about the idea of hiring an intern just to get rid of duplicates?
That's not a bad idea.
Was that
That's a
floated?
good
I
start.
think that's a good first step.
Yeah, that's a great first step.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's if we decide we want to go down this road too, right?
They should be straightened out no matter what.
Yeah.
Well,
Good project for an intern also.
Allison and I have had a conversation about moorings and duck blind permits and that sort of thing. And she can digitize that, or in fact, you've started a digital application process for those. Is there any reason we can't go through the old ones ourselves? How many years do we need to keep? Probably not many, right? 3 years at the most of applications and permits with moorings, duck blinds, and kayaks. Okay, so that's already digitized, but we have old records of those. We could keep 3 years just for a record of if we have any problems with certain applicants. We could ditch the rest of them. We don't need them or anything. Digitize the 3 years ourselves with a scanner. Okay? And that's a whole area that we no longer have to think about with this program.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I was going to say.
And it's a start. It gives us an idea of what the whole process is.
I was going to say with Celia's suggestion, we should pick an area, so it's a good area. This is a good area to start, but moving on, we should also see what's the next highest priority area, because we've got, how we're going to continue to file, but you've got files for docks, you've got files for general things.
That's where we start getting into problems, because again, they're not filed by address, they're filed by name. And the doc could be in 3 different files, file cabinets.
So how are we going to, the first step is how are we going to then
organize them by tax numbers. That way that carries through any new ownership.
Or consolidate all the files into that file, right?
Yes.
It'll be by the property.
Correct.
Whatever that entails.
Yeah, so that one property could find itself in docks, because it might have a dock. It could find itself in Georgia because it's on Georgia, and perhaps they've had permits that require them to do a vegetated buffer or things, because, we already have it with his properties that have multiple files.
Well, we could also break it down by area too, so it creates a smaller chunk. We could do that makes sense, Georgia. and then get all the files
And that'll
pertaining to Georgia from all the different.
That will not just encapsulate, well, if you do Georgia, then you're also gonna have to do like the docs.
You have to
things
pull
like
it out of the
that.
doc file, yeah.
But somebody had suggested possibility of maybe hiring a librarian to do something like that.
Right.
It was your idea. What if we,
For someone,
or got an intern who's,
or you can get someone
maybe-
who's a information technology.
right.
It's not exactly a librarian. It's called a document manager, and it's a subset of library science.
Mhm.
They're expensive.
No, but if we had an intern,
An intern of a document manager?
yeah,
I don't know.
just to
Such a person
organize,
exists.
just to do the organization of getting the
You're assuming that
tax
this
map
intern
numbers.
would have the professional understanding,
Right.
which makes her not really an intern anymore. Yeah.
I think you'd want consulting from a document manager, not an intern. You know, someone who doesn't really know what they're doing yet.
Where do you find a document manager?
But a
big
consultant
company.
isn't going to do the actual work. They're going to make suggestions on what we need to
Are
do.
there resources in the town that could help us? I mean, the town otherwise files stuff.
Yeah, each department takes care of their own. I mean, you were a department head. Who did your
Natural
stuff?
resources under the person I worked under.
Yeah, did they have somebody coming from another department to
It
do
was
it?
like,
No.
what pile under the desk? Where did I
The
put
point
that?
is, that there's nobody in the town who's going to come over and help us organize our files.
They're doing
No,
some
but they
of the
could, at
towns.
least we could learn from how they do it.
I mean, they just went through
Eye of the
it.
guy.
Did they have prep work before?
We talked about the digitization on this stuff.
But we're talking about preparing for digitization.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, organizing.
Yeah.
What's the business value in this? I mean, I know you want to protect the documents,
Mhm.
but if you got fireproof file cabinets, replace the ones that are not. What would be the business value of doing this?
We have nowhere to store the documents we have now.
Okay, so it's physical space.
Space is an issue. Moving.
On top of that, if the building will not physically hold a whole lot more file cabinets because of the weight issue. I mean,
You could look at off-site storage.
Well, the town has a huge document storage problem,
I think
That's why they
ultimately
digitize.
too, it's
Yeah.
ease of access to the files by different people.
Right. That's,
Better system.
and I'm not sure that would be.
File and you rip it apart physically and you put it back together, the next guy who comes has got to wade through it. At least if it's digitized, it's
You can
going
do
to
it,
stay
you can do
in
it from
the
there.
order that you.
Pardon?
You can do it from that.
You can do it from your phone. You can use Dropbox. You can scan. I do that with all my records. I scan them with Dropbox. I have all my tax files together.
But you don't have the amount of files that we have.
No,
That's,
and nor do I have the diversity of content that you
Right,
have.
right.
I have invoices.
so we have to decide what we're going to do moving forward. That's,
Well, yeah, and you have to decide the resources it would take, and do you have the resources and the impact to the business? As we're operating day to day, do we have the people to do this kind of work? I can't answer those questions, but the business value isn't like hitting me right in the face. You can take some of the files that you have and just go through drawer 1, drawer 2, drawer 3. And
yeah, we talked about that.
yeah, just start like that. And
Yeah, and then get some of the groundwork done before you hand it to somebody to digitize, because otherwise I think we're paying for a whole bunch of, they're gonna be expensive copies at the end of the day. If you
They're still not gonna be
if you
organized.
get just a pile of papers that are no longer papers, they're just individual
Images.
pages, but, unless these things are collated by, start with the tax map number, and then there'll be different files, within that tax map number. If they've got a dock, if they've got something else, you're gonna have to.
So how do we get there? How do we get to the matching the tax map number to the addresses of each file when you go through some of these things? There's no, you're going by name. Okay? You're not going by address. In order to collate
It's where it's like,
one address, you're going to have to go through every single
Francis,
file.
You know what it's a lot like? When somebody dumps their garbage in your dumpster.
No.
You have to crawl into the dumpster and you have to root around in the garbage
I
and
don't have
find
that
something, find something with an address on it. You got to file. It's a name.
But who's going to
Somewhere
do
in
it?
there.
Who's
Well,
going to do it? That's what I'm
I
getting
think
to.
this is one of
It's
those
not going to
things-
be you. It's not going to be me.
It could be me.
You're not gonna do it.
I was intended to do it the other day.
When are you going
but
to do it? When you're not
Allison
working
waylighted
in
me
Montauk
doing emails, which by the way, I still don't have hooked up.
See?
Otherwise,
You
I
see?
could have actually had something done.
You did
Exactly
it. It's
my
on your
point.
phone. But can I chime in just from an office management
Yes,
perspective and what
please.
Arlene and I actually experience on a day-to-day? If this board, I'm trying to figure out the way to put this appropriately. I personally do not think that if we did not have somebody else come in and do this or hire somebody to support either like digitizing the files in some way, there is no way, shape, or form that between what Arlene and I do on an everyday basis, that we would be able to do this in addition to what we already do every day. I think that no matter what, if there is an overall sentiment of finding a way to move towards digitization or do something with these files, we have to bring somebody else in or change something because there's no way that we're going to be able to get it done with what we do every day, just ourselves. I don't see that happening.
Simple things like if you're going to organize by name, be first name, last name, how do you spell the name? Did you make a misspelling? You can't match it up
Here's
again.
the problem. You cannot, the name doesn't help when the property sells and now it's a different name. So you need that postcode that's the tax map.
Right.
And then it doesn't matter who owns the property. You could, if you handed this out to somebody to digitize it, and if they're gonna organize these files, if they're doing it by the tax map numbers, it's gonna get organized. All of the stuff for that property should be accessible in the same sort of file.
Right.
But you won't be
you
able
have to
to
get to that
scan by
point
name.
first.
So like a lot of times I try to ask somebody for a record and I give them my name. And they're like, no, I don't want that. I want this number. And they have to have that number. It's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's what we're going to end up with is something where the tax map number is the real super index.
But it means going through each one of those files that you don't see it's not on the file now. And comb through the file, organize it in terms of the chronology of the file. And while you're doing that, you find out where is this place? If there's no tax map number, there's got to be an address in there somewhere. Look up the tax map number, put that in. It's only a one-time deal that you'll have to do that. You do it, and
It seems to me that the first step is really to decide how things are going to be organized. Like, if we've got all these doc files and then we've got all these other files, and now we have to take out of the doc and put into the other to get it into a organization by property, that's massive. But, what if you left the doc files as they are and just organized them by property, set them aside, and you go, that's one chunk of work. I mean, it's like, how are we going to do it? Is almost more the question we need to answer now than getting in there and doing it. Like what you just started off with, we can do the moorings and the duck blinds and stuff. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe that's the way to approach it, is just take a doable chunk of work and work on it move on to another doable chunk of work, but try to organize it in such a way that the doable chunks at some point can easily be meshed if we want to mesh them. If that makes any sense.
Sure. And are we all decide, do we definitely want to do this? Is this something where we're still mulling it over? Do we have to do it?
We don't have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking of digitization now. I'm just thinking it's really more an organizational task. We want to change it. What are the steps, Rick?
I was just wondering about the response to Siri Systems. Are we just going to tell them that we've sort of tabled their proposal for now?
Yeah.
I don't see what we're gonna.
I think we've got
ask
to,
them do.
before we engage somebody like that, we either got to do some homework ourselves or have somebody do some homework for us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think we're going to be sadly disappointed with what we get. You're going to find yourself needing to physically get your hands on a lot of that paperwork. Otherwise, you're just going to have this mix-mosh of pages
So
that
we
you
need a
can't
proof of principle.
find.
Yeah.
I wonder if that company has anybody or knows somebody who could help us with
They
this.
probably can.
Yeah.
I'm sure this isn't the first time somebody's asking that question.
We saw the initial cost. Do we know what the annual cost is once everything's like scanned in to maintain all that stuff, storage? It's going to keep growing. You know, just a big expense. Like
What? A digital storage?
Once they get it done, then we just add to it from the office. We don't need them to come.
I'm sure there's I'm sure there's a fee to store all our stuff every month.
They gave us some, I think they gave a price on storage of the physical of the.
Well, the initial.
He's talking about digital storage.
Just the cost moving forward after the project's done, because there's going to be an annual cost for that to store or keep our documents. It's not
That's
free.
a good question.
Right?
Because if you don't get that clear, if you want to own the electronic storage yourself versus having them own it.
Yeah. We could be locked into a big number.
Yeah. And we probably don't want to own that ourselves unless the town would own it, because we don't know enough about security,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Updates, cyber, all that stuff. Right.
I'm sorry?
The town does own that software,
Okay.
and I believe there's a way for the trustees to work with the town in order to have access to that software, have our files in that software that is only accessible to the trustees.
Okay. It's good to know.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. It's not going to be accessible from anybody out on the web.
You
No,
think,
I didn't.
you hope.
The town has
Look at what happened with the county and the amount of,
But why is that any worse than the possibility of a hurricane taking all of our records with it?
No, but it's a
really-
different threat to manage, so you need something like CrowdStrike.
I'd rather be fishing friggin' pages out of the bushes than trying to wrestle it away from some Nigerian. That's just me.
Okay. Clearly, we don't have the answers tonight. I'm just going to ask everybody to continue thinking about it, and we'll continue the conversation.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I would get fireproof file cabinets.
We do have that. We do have.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought there were a few that weren't.
No, how many times we've said this?
I think anything with there's a few that have things that aren't really real record. I mean, I don't know what they are, but
Okay.
like junk drawers.
And even are we going back 3 years? Do we throw out some stuff too, like the kayaks and the duck blinds?
Well, that's what I was saying.
Just toss it.
If we start there, get a scanner, we scan that in, 3 years worth, it's keep.
A lot of those.
And throw the rest out.
But a lot of the files are kind of like doc files, and we've had some recent instances where we wanted to go back and see.
Those are important.
That we have to keep.
Started.
Yeah, those are important to save, but like duck blind from 15 years ago, right? You just toss all that stuff.
Yeah.
How far back do we have for stuff?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you have to.
Right now, I believe 2016.
1,600.
The florets. Yeah, maybe we don't need those. They probably don't
I don't
take
think
up
they
tons of
were giving permits for them back then, Jim.
Might have been, I don't know.
All right. Next is a resolution to designate me as signatory for an appeal bond. I think everybody was sent that resolution. We did pass this last year, but since the board has changed, and because we did not have to secure those bonds, it's felt that this should be renewed.
We got prices and stuff, we never actually had to get.
Oh, we never did it.
All right,
Okay.
so
I mean, so we were prepared to do it. You know, that's where we are now, it's just for the new board.
all right, so I'll read it. Resolution to authorize Francis J. Bach as signatory of appeal bond. Whereas the trustees are currently a named defendant in the civil proceeding, Seaview at Amagansett Limited et al. Versus trustees of the freeholders in commonality of the town of East Hampton et al. Index number 034714/2009, pending in Suffolk County Supreme Court. And whereas the trustees as defendants have been ordered, it appears, to jointly and severally
Severally.
reimburse.
Same like you.
It's pretty severe.
Yeah. It means everybody's on the hook. That's
Yep, severally reimburse Pillsbury Winthrop Pittman LLP in the amount of $340,000 for attorney's fees and $17,000 in costs and disbursements for a total of $357,000. And whereas the trustees as defendants have been ordered, it appears, to jointly and severally reimburse Essex, Hefter, Angel, Natalia, and Pasca LLP in the amount of $32,000 for attorney's fees and $60 in costs and disbursements for a total of $32,060. And whereas, subject to a pending motion, the trustees will secure an appeal bond to file with the Suffolk County Supreme Court. And whereas the trustees will be required to sign an indemnification agreement with the bonding company to secure said bond, the trustees will designate a member of the board as signatory. Now therefore be it resolved by the trustees of the freeholders in commonality of the town of East Hampton, designate Francis J. Bach, clerk of the trustees, as an authorized signatory on any and all indemnification agreements necessary to secure the appeal bond.
Make a motion. I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, that's.
Jim.
Thank you.
Committee reports. Education, science fair at Montauk School.
Yes, well, I was lucky enough to be a judge at this event, which was really wonderful. Grades 4 through 8. And at least half of the projects were environmental in nature. And a goodly number of candidates in the upper grades were allowed to go to regional science fairs, which are the Long Island Science Center, and in the younger grades to participate in a Brookhaven National Lab program. So it's really terrific. And also the judges who were there, you know, were from all the organizations, Nature Conservancy, Citizens of Montauk, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a great sort of networking event for all the people who are involved with the environment. And I do have to tell a very sweet story because I was a judge for the 5th graders. And the children had to isolate an independent variable in their experiments. And this child asked for chocolate chip to assess the effect of butter on consumption of chocolate chip cookies. And much to his shock, he said, I thought everyone would like the cookies right out of the recipe book, but much to his shock, the more butter you put in, the more people liked it. These cookies did not resemble cookies once they were like totally overcome with butter. But anyway, that was a fun experiment. But, you know, many of these projects are very serious environmental experiments, and I just salute the program. I think it's just terrific.
Did they have any cookies to eat?
No, they were just little paper cutouts of cookies, which was a problem.
Okay,
It's okay.
All right, next we have the Conic Estuary meeting update.
So we went to a meeting that had people in government who are involved in permitting. And there were trustees from Southampton, East Hampton, Southold, and then there were other organizations who are involved in permitting. And John actually gave them all the input about our business process flow, how we handle a permit application. And then we saw what the other trustees had done, and it was really interesting just to see. And now we put in more detail during the meeting about what the meeting inputs were and things like that. So Jade will update the process maps and we can get them to you to see. I just thought it was a really good meeting.
Yeah, it's the first meeting in a string of meetings, I have a feeling. So,
Where'd you guys meet?
in the Riverhead Library.
Yeah, right.
Nice library.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, really nice.
Good idea. You finally got a couple different hamlets of trustees together to hash out.
Well, it was also, Brian Frank was there from other planning. So,
How long did it go for?
I don't know, a couple of hours.
Yeah, a couple of
Few
hours, 3 hours. Just broke around lunchtime. It was a good example of how PEP brings some consulting to us and, that actually coached us a little bit. I thought it was a good meeting and I look forward to the inputs.
Yeah, I think East Hampton is pretty much, ahead of the curve on these things. I think they're trying to bring everybody together to look at their permitting, not so much the processes, but how you're going to, protect the environment really is the bottom line, as best you can in a consistent way in the region, having different towns, different organizations do things differently.
So we're more advanced in Southampton.
What's that?
We're more advanced than, say, Southampton.
Yeah, East Hampton's always kind of been
Yeah.
ahead of the curve with that. Southampton's too.
I thought our business process was more streamlined and sort of elegant, whereas some of them were like a little bit too complicated. And
Yeah, I think we're able to do things a little bit more the way we want to do them. I think some of the towns especially are constrained by, laws and, decisions made. I mean, Brian Frank doesn't make the decisions. He's got to, he makes certain decisions, but he has to go by the processes that are set by maybe elected officials or state mandates, things like that. So, because we own our land, we're basically landowners. We can kind of do whatever we want, the way we want to do it.
Right.
And they can't so much.
then we have the workshop,
What's that?
the workshop on Thursday.
Yeah, Technical Advisory Committee meets on Thursday. There'll be two presentations. I forget what they are, though.
Well, one was about a paper that's one of them had written about how suboptimal vegetation in a salt marsh prevents the salt marsh from protecting itself from sea level
Nicole
rise.
Marr, she's
Yeah,
gonna give a
Nicole's paper.
presentation. That might be interesting.
So Nicole's going to present on that, and I don't know what the other one was.
The other is a student presentation on
Yeah.
their master's work or PhD work, I think. Forget what it was, though. But yeah, Nicole Mars, I guess she and Adam Stark at the Nature Conservancy have been working on the Accabonac Marsh for quite a while. So they're presenting some information on how the marsh is doing, and forget what the specific, experiment is, but.
Anyone plan on going?
I'm going to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I could send, there's a Zoom link too, right?
Yes, we could send that
Send out.
around.
What time's the meeting?
It's 10, we're gonna start
Yeah,
at
10 to
10 to 1 or something like that.
It's at the Marine Center in Southampton.
I'll send the Zoom link out.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Listen into the presentations. Anyway.
Yeah.
Next, we have the largest clam contest.
Yeah, so we need to get a date set for that so we can start planning and having people, get that on their calendar. So I talked to John about the tides. He's the tide man. And he said the best low tide option is going to be to have the contest on September 29th. That's the last Sunday. So I make a motion.
Well, let me just run the tides by everybody, because I don't want to be, if this goes south, I don't want it to be my decision. So the tides in the week that seem to me to be the best, low tide, so you have to look at a 7-day period or a 6-day period. So the first day low tide is early in the morning, 7:30, I think it's 7:30. And then by the time you get to the end of the week, the low tide is, I think it was 1:30 in the afternoon. That's 1 week.
You're looking to do that the preceding week of the 29th?
That's the week preceding the contest.
Yeah, no, that
That's the
makes
week
sense.
you can dig.
Yeah.
So it's a morning low tide.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Next week, the tide is low on the first day at like 3 o'clock, and on the last day, I think is 6:30.
Okay.
So that's a late afternoon low tide.
Okay, so which week? Is the week of the 22nd? Is that the early low tides?
That's it, yeah.
Okay, so why don't we just go with that, John?
You happy with that?
29th?
I think that's great insight, great thinking, and listen, if it doesn't work out, yes, it is your fault.
Jim, you hear that weekend this year?
I don't know.
yet.
All right. Do we have to make a motion or?
It's too early to ask.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to vote on it, do we?
No, that looks good though.
So Patricia, just so you guys know, we tried to have every trustee bring in 3 prizes, and then we should have enough for our baskets. So you guys start now. You got plenty of time. Go knocking to some.
We have a lot of
businesses.
leftover stuff, don't we?
We do, but we have 2 new trustees.
No, we gotta get some more,
that can
yeah.
get out
Okay,
there,
well, that sounds
pound the
like,
pavement.
that's fun.
Yeah, it is fun, actually. And you'd be surprised how helpful.
A lot of
businesses
businesses
are.
kind
You also get to introduce yourself and meet
Yeah.
some people, tell them what you're doing.
9/29/24. Okay.
And
So then the digging would open on September 21st, correct, through the 28th, the week prior?
like restaurant gift certificates are good, or just merchandise, or if next time you're in the office, check out the baskets. You can see what we got.
All right. Next, just so everybody knows, we got a thank you note from Ben O'Rourke for his, the money we gave him for the satellite tagging of sharks. Did you read?
I didn't see it. I just
No, okay. I'll pass it around. And And administrative, payment of the bills, optimum, $150.24. Have a motion.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Financials for the month ended December 31st, 2023. Anybody have a chance to look at that?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, and minutes from the meeting, January 22nd,
Yes,
2024.
there was a mistake that Patrice's name was put instead of my name being added to the Education Committee. She's already, you caught that one?
I already corrected it, yes, thank you. I was typing and I can't distinguish your voices yet, and I thought it was Patrice and John corrected me.
All right, so I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I don't have anything at the moment on the report of the clerk.
I just have one thing.
Okay.
Clearwater Beach Property Owners Association.
Which one?
Dredging, Clearwater Beach Property Owners Association, dredging of Hog Creek Inlet is complete. And they've been invoiced for the amount of spoil. And their intention is to spread the spoil on the beach at Clearwater and Lionhead.
Okay, so they'll be paying us for the,
They've been invoiced.
how many yards did they pull this year?
Do you remember the yardage?
Not offhand. I could check my email and get back.
I'm looking for the email too, but I can't find it.
About 6,000,
6,000.
I'm not sure. Jim has it in his file. Cubic yards, the survey, the one two pieces of paper.
It's like $6,000 or $7,000.
Well, how many yards?
750. 750 a yard.
Thank you.
611.
And when you're done, I do have one thing on the report.
And one thing also.
Let me do mine first, if you don't mind.
No?
According to this, it's $4,582.50. Okay,
Here's the,
okay, 611 yards. Oh, wait, we have two,
611
we have
and
2 piles.
266.
We have 2 piles. Hang on, because they pulled over at Lionhead too.
611 and 266.
It's like 900.
$6,577.
Yeah, but I think it's each responsible for their own.
Okay. Okay.
All right, beautiful. All right. All right, so I have a resolution to retain counsel in the Aiden Stark case for civil defense representation. It's from Chris. Whereas the trustees are currently named defendant in the civil proceeding Aiden Stark against the town of East Hampton and trustees of the freeholders of the commonality of the town of East Hampton, which is pending in the Suffolk County Supreme Court, whereas the trustees have been served with a summons, index number 601108/2024, to answer the complaint in this action and to serve a copy of our answer, whereas the trustees need to retain counsel to handle this complaint. Now therefore be it resolved by the trustees of the freeholders and commonality of the town of East Hampton that 1, the trustees appoint Frederick C. Joes Esquire of the law firm of Lewis, Joes, Avalon, of Avalese, LLP, to represent the trustees in the civil defense proceedings in the above noted case. 2, the trustees agreed to pay the law firm of Lewis, Joes, Avalon, Avalese LLP a retainer of $2,500. And 3, this resolution is effective immediately.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Just trust in our captain, because he's the guy for the job, right?
Who he's recommending?
Yeah.
I think John got it.
Jim, do you know the date of the parade?
What parade is that?
Same.
St. Patty's.
24th, I think.
4th, March?
Yeah, so Sunday after St. Patty, actual St. Patty's Day.
Okay. Do we need to put in anything to?
17th, yeah, it's 24th.
Okay. Do we need to fill out an application or anything, or do we want to be in the parade, or?
If somebody wants to take it on,
Is the pump out boat open? Is it unwrapped by then?
Usually unwrap it.
Yeah.
we can arrange it.
Unwrap it.
Wrap it.
Yeah.
I'll do it again.
Yeah, I'll do it again too.
So we need to order the beads and all that stuff.
Yeah, Susan just sent me the link to order. Should we have, stuff from last year?
I don't think
Yeah.
it's over.
We have we'll check.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot, but there's some things that we have.
Stuff like, yeah.
Yeah, I think Susan said we ran out pretty
We
quickly.
need to make a motion of like
Yeah, take
$500.
over.
She said she just ordered it all.
Yeah.
You guys want to, we want to.
Someone has to make a motion for a budget.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, motion budget of $500 for plug fingers.
Give or take a couple hundred million.
Second.
Well, you don't have to spend it all. So
That's true. But we burned through it all.
So we did 500 last year?
And we buy those beads and stuff are super cheap.
Yeah.
Oriental Trading
I
Company.
got the link.
Okay, so we got a motion, I'll second it.
all in favor?
500? Okay.
Yeah, and that's like, it's gonna be March by
Yeah,
like
next
tomorrow.
month. Yeah, you're right. Good call, Ben.
Anybody have anything else? Motion to close?
Make a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Okay.